Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Speculation Station. I'm your host, Captain Ketter. I'm joined again today by Admiral Tater. Say hi.
Hey there.
Also by Bodie,
Howdy.
and again by Texas Honey Badger. Say hi.
Yeehaw.
Today we had a part one of an interview with Admiral Tater about their recent tournament over in Chicago called Uprising, and we're gonna finish off the interview and split it into the second part here, going through the Clone Wars faction squadron tier list for the Aces. So, in a similar format to the previous tier lists that we've done for the generics and the rebels, we're going to go through each squadron, talk about it, give its statistics or keywords, and then give a little hot take of where we think it belongs, and then see if everybody else agrees with it. So now we have twice as many people as before. It was just Bodie and I before, so I think there may be either more room for contention, and we may end up putting these more closely to where they belong. But to start off here, I will read off Oddball from the Republic faction.
Yeah, gone are the days of you convincing me to put Defenders in A tier.
A tier. Where did I put? Is that where I said?
You originally had them in S, I think, but I talked you down a bit.
Are you talking about the fire sprays?
That might have been it. I don't remember. I'm just messing with you, though.
I think fire sprays are S tier.
Yeah, it's all fun and games, so you see 6 of them at you, right?
It's
Then the
true.
rest here.
They need
Call me
Commander Woldar.
Only downside to that is who owns 6 Rogues and Villains packs. I know of one person who owns 5. I think Nick. It's either Nick or Maki. One of the two California guys has 5.
I think Real Veers runs he's got like 5 or 6 of them, and then he runs Hondo and Mauler Mythil with it.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
All right, sorry, I'm totally distracting it, but
That's all right. It'll just be a little bit of a longer podcast. It's not my problem. You're welcome, viewers. So we're gonna start off with Oddball. He's in an Arc 170. He's speed 2, 7 hull. Contrary to the other Arc 170s, he has 2 blue and 1 black against squadrons instead of 2 blue and 1 red. He's got 2 blue anti-ship. His special text reads, while attacking, if you moved during this activation, you may re-roll up to 2 dice. He also has Bomber, Counter 1, a Brace, and an Evade, and he has 23 points. The Republic already has squadrons that are really effective for bombing, that being the Y-Wing at 10 points and the Arc 170 at 15 points, and they're already very survivable at 7 hull. So the idea that you need to add in defense tokens and then pay a lot of extra points for something, that's not even really a benefit. You'd rather have it be fewer points because you'd want to spend those points somewhere else. I think this guy belongs in F tier. You can kind of just chime in and give your opinion in any order.
Got it. Okay.
We'll talk over people. It'll be okay.
The 23 points just ruins Oddball. His ability, I don't need to reroll my blue dice because I'm using him not for squadron combat. I'm using him in ships. I don't need rerolls. And then he's Brace Evade, not double Brace. He should be like, I don't know, 18 points. I think would be more preferred. There's never a reason to take this guy when you can take a regular Arc 170 for 15 points. F tier for sure.
I completely agree. F tier. The only thing initially I thought the same thing, double Brace instead of Brace Evade. But he is a bomber, so you're gonna want him next to ships, and so they're gonna try and flak him. I do think the Evade works well, having an Evade and a Brace. So if they only roll 1 blue at you and they get a hit, you can still mitigate that damage. Whereas if you had double Braces, you can't. I do see a little bit of value in the Evade, but everything else, yeah, F tier.
yeah, Oddball's just trash. I mean, he falls short in literally every way possible. I think that's a good point about the evade against flak, but overall, it really just makes squadrons less survivable. has a slightly better anti-squadron dice pool, but in every other way, he is just a more expensive Arc 170. And Arc 170s already require so much like effort, so much work that you have to put into them to make them like to fly them in a fleet. Oddball just does not make that worth it. Also, if you're flying 8 squadrons and 4 of them are Arc 170s, you're going to be hard pressed to like both on ace count and on the points to fit it into 134. You're going to be hard pressed to find a spot for oddball, and there's never a reason why you'd want to make any sacrifice for him. So, F tier for sure.
All right, then it's a consensus. Straight to the bottom. All right, Tater, you got our next one.
Love it. Okay. We're doing DIS T81, not the calculator. It's a speed 5 tri-fighter, 3-hull, red, blue, black anti-squad, and a black non-bomber. Brace scatter, only 17 points. He's got AI, counter 2, snipe 3, and swarm. Easily S tier. This squadron is amazing. And most importantly, his special ability is his attacks cannot be obstructed. This guy is an absolute monster with activated by a ship with flight controllers. Snipe 5 is incredible, especially when you're like hiding him behind like an asteroid or something, or on an asteroid, and he can't be engaged. Especially if you sit him next to like Wat Tambor. Oh, it's so fun. Easily, probably going to be my favorite out of all of these. But yeah, there you go. That's what I gotta say about it.
Drew, you got any thoughts on this guy?
100% S tier. So really hitting both ends of the spectrum, because Oddball was the only F tier I have for the Clone Wars factions, and Dis is one of the only 2 S tiers I have. So Garrett said it all. I mean, being able to stay obstructed but not be obstructed and not be engaged, and then you can sit on an asteroid, you can sit on the station, block squad balls from being on the station to where they're unobstructed. Everything, swarm, reroll, all of it. Yeah, tier.
And the 17 points is just nutty.
Kind of goes along with this meta of cheap squadrons and then fixed ships.
All right, we're already friends, so it's time to make some enemies. DIS is a fine squadron. He doesn't do anything particularly impressive, in my opinion. His abilities are just kind of like generic keyword abilities that like the attacks cannot be obstructed is the strongest line of text on him, in my opinion. I find a hard time taking him in my lists just because I tend to my ideal separatist squadron balls are basically just generics. It'll be like 5 vultures, 4 hyenas, and what or something like that. But I don't know. This feels fine. I originally ranked him all the way down in C tier, but I think that he's a little bit better than that. He's definitely better than other CIS aces. I'd be okay putting him all the way up in A, but when it comes to other S tier picks, I feel like he falls just a little bit short. I mean, especially like we're going to talk about Anakin soon, and I mean, he's nowhere near that power level. I don't know. I'd be curious if you.
I'm gonna say skill issue. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
I think you're ignoring the fact that Dis is a hard counter to Anakin and Sharabe, which are 2 of the most obnoxious squadrons in this game.
This is a scatter ace saber squadron. You get the snipe 5 when you throw in flight controllers. Saber is really good because it can snipe 5 with the flight controllers, a 3-hull, 5 speed, a swarm for a reroll. This is all of that. Yeah, 6 more points, but your 6 more points, you're getting a better anti-squad, a better anti-ship, and you're getting countered. I don't think, Saber doesn't have counter, and then you can't be obstructed. So you can snipe with a lot more possibilities if they're playing KG. I mean, you snipe on the other side of a ship and not be obstructed. I think, yeah, it's a Saber squadron with a scatter and a brace.
I don't know. He doesn't feel like to me the things that go in S tier are notorious for being disgusting, and DIS has never felt disgusting. He feels very fair. The things that he can do are strong, but it's not like he's a like if I were looking over the rules, it's not like I would look at him first as something that might need a balance change, like I do with. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of stuff that needs a balance change, but the S tier would be the stuff I look at first, and I don't think he's there.
I don't think you need to be overpowered to be S tier. I just think you need to be the perfect squadron, and I think this is.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think he does most everything well, especially with that swarm. You can get a reroll if he's not activated. He's efficient in bombing, speed 5, has a scatter. And then I think he's not taken very much because people are taking just vultures or just focusing on ships. And this squadron deserves to be taken more than it has. So I I think he does belong in S tier also, just because it's a hard counter to a lot of squadrons out there. You can kind of put yourself in obstruction, and then if there is an area effect rule out there like Anakin, you can put yourself hopefully out of range of that, and then uh, be able to shoot into that region and still do damage. So
Yeah. Well, I am handedly outnumbered. I will accept this defeat. All I'm saying is there's a few on at least Drew has sent his list. There's a few that I get a bit more weight on later.
okay, all right. Why don't you take us away for the next guy?
Oh, Drew's next.
Oh, Drew's next. My bad.
Yeah, jeez.
I get Matchstick. I have Matchstick as B tier.
Can you read him off for the audio listener?
Yeah. So, E-Wing or Beetle Y-Wing, 16 points. He's got the exact same stats as a generic Y-Wing, except for he's got double brace, and his ability is when a friendly ship resolves a squadron command, if you are in range to be activated, up to 3 of the squadrons with bomber it activates can be at distance 1 to 3 of you. So it's relay for bomber. It's relay 3 for bombers. Now, it's nice, but you've got the other 3-speed Y-Wings, but most people play arcs, and so arcs are only 2 speed. You're not really overextending with your bombers in the Gar faction, so the ability's solid. I don't know if I'd call it good, but he's a Y-Wing with double brace, basically, and maybe he can help you with a little positioning issues if you're playing like a grinder with a bunch of peltas or something. But even in those situations, most of them are running fighter coordination team, and so they're right up in the thick of it with their fighters anyway. So I think I liked him originally. I think maybe he was a little undercosted, but I think they should have adjusted his cost and kept his ability instead of completely changing his ability and upping his cost. Tier.
Yeah, I agree. To your point, I thought they should have just made it up to 3 can be given rogue and left him as is. I think that would have been a good compromise. Yeah, I think B tier is perfect for him. I think he's really list situational, so he doesn't go good with everything. I don't think we recorded this part, but I was talking about my hyperspace rings thing with Matchstick, and if I put my Arc 170s way out in front, Matchstick can see some use with his relay. But yeah, but he's not bad for 16 points, double brace. It takes a long time to kill him, but he's heavy, so that brings him back too. Yeah, B tier.
Yeah, I am in agreement here. I'm a huge new Matchstick fanboy. I find myself running a Squadron Ball with Anakin, Axe, Kickback, and Matchstick, and then either Arcs or Y-Wings a lot. He helps me, like, he allows me to be a bad player and then, like, still kill stuff. I actually tried to fly a version of the list that I'm thinking about bringing to Osmo that had a generic Ether Sprite in place of him and just 3 aces. And there was one critical turn where I flew my Venator just outside of activation range, and I wasn't able to kill a ship because of that. And as soon as I got home, like, immediately Matchstick back in the list. The heavy is a downside, and that's just something that you have to face if you're flying Y-Wings. But I think Y-Wings are the best generic, Gar Y-Wings are the best generic squadron in the game. And I don't know, I think Matchstick's also super great. However, his upsides do not make him better than B tier. Like, he's just kind of a guy. He doesn't do anything super special. And if you're flying him, you do need to have other bombers in the list in order for his ability to function. It's not like some of the others. Like, this is a perfect example. You can fly a Squadron Ball that's literally just like Dis and one other guy, and it's going to be fine. But Matchstick, you have to have points in your list devoted to the bomber ball, and that makes him a quintessential B tier squadron for me.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I've said this several times on the podcast already, but I feel like Matchstick, whenever they first released him, was meant so that hyperspace rings could get some use, and so you could forward deploy your squadrons. And I think they were anticipating that the ARPs would be out there doing their thing, but giving everybody Rogue and uh, just was a little OP for Matchstick, and then it created a very difficult situation to fly against because you would be eaten alive by the squadrons, and then by the end of turn 2, now you're worried about all the ships coming in to kill you. And the Anakin Matchstick combo was just extremely deadly, and I'm pretty sure Drew can attest to that. I flew against him. I think it was down in Houston, and I barely eked out. I think it was a 5, or maybe it was a 4, but that was kind of a chaotic match where I used the gravity rift to my advantage to try and just GTFO and get out of there. And I shouldn't have won that game, or shouldn't have gotten so many points in that game, because I think my capital ship only survived on 1 HP, and I just got lucky essentially on the dive rolls. But yeah, I don't think Matchstick in its current state belongs anywhere higher than B because he's rather niche. I still think in his niche he's probably really fun to play, and I do suggest people try it out with hyperspace rings, like Admiral Tater said. All right, so B tier for Matchstick. Up next, we have the Bactoid prototypes. Bodhi, do you want to read those guys off?
I'd love to. Bactoid Prototypes is a Hyena class droid bomber squadron. It has speed 4, 4 hull, anti-squadron is 2 blue, anti-ship is a red. It has brace scatter, costs 16 points. It has AI, battery 1, bomber, heavy, and while attacking a ship, if another friendly squadron with bomber is at distance 1 of the defender, you may change 1 die to a face with an accuracy icon. So Bactoid is honestly, the best part about this is that it's a bomber with a scatter defense token. I've played against him a couple of times. I can't remember playing him myself. Maybe when I was like really new at the game. But I mean, he's he's a bomber with a defense token, a scatter defense token, and he's fairly well costed for it. Um, I don't know. His ability is not that great. I have him in D tier. I don't know. I feel like I could see him up or down a tier, but definitely not higher than that.
Okay. Let's see. While attacking a ship, if a friendly squadron with bombers at distance 1, you may change one die to an accuracy. I can see that being beneficial when you're trying to like pick off a flotilla. But
I mean, it's like it's dice fixing. Yeah, I guess it's good against flotilla, but it's dice fixing, but it's like the dice face that you want the least, I guess. I mean, it kind of has the Plo Koon problem of, yeah, you're gonna stop their redirect, but that's only really helpful if you're able to consistently bomb one whole zone, and it gets to the point where, I mean, your ship's shots are going to be able to redirect. So like, I don't know, it just doesn't do enough to warrant its ability being like. I mean, obviously, like you're gonna change a blank into an accuracy because why not? But you're never going to change a hit into an accuracy. The coolest thing that I've ever seen this guy do is stop salvos.
yeah, I feel like the reason you would take him is he gives you a little bit of insurance away from blanks. So you like roll your 2 dice with activation, and then you get to re-roll with bomber command, and then if you have a blank, then you can get that accuracy. Or if there is a scatter, or you don't want them to redirect, then you can get that accuracy on there. I feel like he could be like a D tier squadron, or not D tier, C tier squadron. Um, just because he has the scatter, and that's why you would take him. The insurance is kind of nice, but it's not crazy good. I wouldn't even call it really good. It's just nice to have sometimes.
Yeah, it's something that like I wouldn't pay the premium for. I feel like if you're bringing Factoid, it's because you want the scatter and you're probably playing DBS as well, and feel like DBS is better. Um, I don't know. I feel like there's not really a commander in the game that wants Factoid. Uh, like the most squadron centered commander is Grievous, and he wants his stuff to die, not live. So I don't know. He falls short for me, but if you want your bombers to live, the scatter is possibly worth the extra 5 points.
Yeah, let's see what everybody else has to say. What about you, Tater? Where do you think this guy belongs? We may have lost him.
Oh, whoops. Sorry, I'd muted myself. I was gonna say I think D tier is very appropriate. I never take this squadron. His ability is useless in the age of point defense ion cannons. If I need both my reds to have a hit, and that's the only advantage of using hyenas. So that's why Bomber Command Center is the only thing that matters. They don't even reward this ace with like a blue-black anti-squad, which would help it a little bit, at least make it useful in a squadron fight. I don't know. It's just, yeah, the scatter's okay, but with point defense ion cannons and a limit to 4 aces with tokens in a list, he just never makes the cut. What do you think, Drew?
Yeah, I originally had him in B tier, but that's because I misread his ability. So I definitely, yeah, I agree. D tier, and I agree with Bodie. If you want to move him up or down one, I don't care. But yeah, I don't think you'd ever really take him seriously in a try hard competitive list where you're trying to build the best squad ball possible. Now, if you're just doing a bomber themed list and you want to play both the bomber aces that CIS has, sure. But
I'm assuming that you misread the ability that if a bomber is a distance 1, it can change to an accuracy, uh, or something like that.
I think so. Either that, or I think it was even further than that. I think it was another bomber at distance 1. I thought it was like a Plo Koon ability where you get to add a die with an accuracy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that would have been cool, but
If it was like, even if it was just all friendlies at distance 1 can change to an accuracy, it may have some use, but like Garrett said, you want the double hits. That's what you're searching for. And
Take a hyena and then spend your 6 points or 5 points on Bomber Command Center.
Right,
And then
exactly.
find 3 somewhere else. Yeah.
All right, that's all I've got for Bactoid.
Yeah, that's a good point about the PDICs, Tater. I neglected to remember that. So I'm comfortable putting that guy in D tier. Up next, we have Luminara Unduli. Luminara is an Aether Sprite, and her special text reads, if I can pull that up. Well, she's at speed 4, 4 hull, 3 blue anti-squadron with a black, and then 1 blue anti-ship. Special text reads, while an enemy squadron at distance 1 is attacking a non-unique friendly squadron, that attack is treated as obstructed. She has Adept 1, Counter 2, a Brace and a Scatter, and is 23 points. So the reason you'd use this is if you have Escort around you, and then you could help those guys stick around longer. And then cause obstruction. I think she has a synergy also with Plo Koon, where Plo Koon will give non-unique friendly squadrons counter 1. So it would create an obstruction and then hopefully send that damage back with a swarm reroll. So it's like nice, but the amount of points you have to invest into these 2 squadrons in order to make this work just is not worth it at all. For that reason, I think I have her in D tier.
Yeah, I'm fine with D tier. The first squadron, or like when my friend that I learned Armada with and I first picked up the Clone Wars stuff, the first Republic squadron ball that I ever flew against had Lumi, Plo, Axe, and then just a bunch of V19s. And he was able to position them pretty well. And it's honestly really, really annoying to have to chew through a bunch of escorts that the attacks are obstructed against them. If you do any damage, it's going to get reduced by 1 by Axe, and then Plo's going to give it a counter 1 back with Swarm reroll on that counter. So the only downside, though, is that there's just so much more efficient stuff that you can be doing in the Gar faction with squadrons. And even though that is a cool little combination, I feel like it's kind of a casual tables only type of thing. Because of it, I'm a little partial towards Lumi, but I think D tier is quite fair.
Yeah. My gut feeling was C tier, just because like her ability is usable with like Arc 170s and things. But there's never any room in a list to put her after I've added the arcs or whatever I'm trying to do. The issue with what you're describing, Lumi and Plo, and then the V19s and Axe, is in Armada, if you invest all your points into defense, you're going to get beat by the person who invested in offense. So, yeah, you can really slow it down, but V19s hit back poorly. Like the 2 blues and a red, like they're going to have a hard time chewing through what's ever attacking them. So it's like a big ball from Timu, right? It's just not as good.
That's actually pretty funny. Yeah, I don't disagree with any of those points. My original tier list had her in F. I could see up to C.
I'll stick her in D though.
yeah, I have her in D, and I think the only thing I can add that hasn't been mentioned is her ability. It's not a squadron at distance 1. It's an enemy squadron at distance 1 of you. So it's not like Axe or Plo where you can keep her back and just keep her within distance 1 of your escorts. You have to put yourself out there and get within engagement of an enemy squadron in order to obstruct their attack. And it really only works with V19s who have escort. If you try to do this with deltas or arcs or even Y-wings, they're just going to ignore those and then kill Lumi and then kill the other things. So,
Yeah, that's
solid
a super
B.
good point. I actually completely overread that, and that makes it even worse. I would almost put her in F tier because of that.
Yeah, the one ball that she's good in is very niche, and I don't know. I don't think it's F tier bad, but yeah.
All right, sounds like we settled on D tier then.
Yeah, I'm happy
Uh,
with D tier.
Tater, do you want to take away the hotter tall prototypes?
Hard Chow. Let's do it. Hatter. I always say Hard Chow, but it's Hatter. Yeah, Hatter Chow prototypes. This is a Vulture, Speed 4. It's got blue black, anti squad, which is way better than blue blue. And then it has red anti ship. Its ability. So there's this thing. Before an enemy ship or squadron at distance 1 moves, you may perform an attack against that ship or squadron, even if you are engaged. Spray Scatter, 16 points. Very average. I say this is a perfect C tier squadron. His ability is kind of neat, but also his dice are not that great. So being able to do the attack isn't oppressive. In the competitiveness of the 4 slots you can put CIS in, he can make some lists, I suppose. But yeah, he's just totally average. There's just nothing amazing about him. He's also kind of hard to position, unless you combine him with the other vulture that gives intel, so that maybe he can get grit and move. But if he gets stuck in a spot that's not useful in a squad battle that no one's moving in, it's not that great.
Yeah, I think you're right with the like average dice. They're just mediocre. So there's like a chance you get a double red. There's a very good chance that you just get a blank against a ship. And then against squadrons, you're only going to be rolling these 2 dice. And usually, an enemy squadron at distance 1 of you is not going to be moving. So I don't know how this reads necessarily in the deep text of like if it moves into range of you, does that count? Or does it have to be moving away from you? Or does it have to like move from one place to another within range of you in order to work? So that's something I don't know, but it wouldn't make much of a difference.
Well, I think it says so since it says before an enemy ship or squadron at distance 1 moves. So it's
Okay,
before it
gotcha.
moves, you measure that distance.
Come on, Judge.
Hey, you know, I would have got it right.
I keep cutting in front of Drew. Drew, do you want to go first?
Go ahead. I'll cover everything you miss.
Okay.
There will be lots.
So Horchal is the worst squadron that we're going to talk about tonight. His ability is useless. Well, aside from maybe Oddball. Oddball's pretty trash. But like, just like Ketter said, there are almost no situations that an enemy ship or squadron is going to be moving unless you thrust this guy like right up close to their ship. Then like, you're gonna throw a single red with non-bomber anti-squadron. Woohoo. And if they have some like grit guys or Tycho, then you're gonna get to throw a blue and a black at them with the swarm reroll. I don't know. There is zero situation in the entire game of Armada where I would ever take this guy over 2 Vulture droids. He's just not worth it in any circumstance, and he's F tier to me.
I'm going to throw in one situation that may change your mind. Just consider for a moment a large base ship with engine techs. You place this guy in the front, the guy moves and lands on him, and then he engine techs, so you'll be able to shoot twice, and then you'll just keep up with him because hopefully he just keeps landing on him.
And you're
So,
still not statistically likely to get a damage on it.
and then you activate him, perhaps, and so you get to roll against a ship 3 times in a turn.
Oh man.
That's actually not that bad, but
But hear me out. If you have 2 Vulture Droid squadrons, then that's 2 red dice, and it's not infringent on your opponent having a large base ship with engine techs, which is fulfilled by exactly 2 ships in the game. So
it's niche. It's so niche that it belongs probably in D or F tier. Yeah. All right, Drew, give us your take.
I have him D tier. He's not as bad as Oddball, but he's bad, and he was my only D tier cis squad till I reread Factoid's ability. But the only and I thought of another very niche situation is against my favorite list, Pizza Party, with a bunch of victories that don't have PDICs and only have a 1 blue anti-flak. You could stick this thing in between 2 of them and have a little heyday shooting at them every time they move. But other than that, it's pretty bad. I agree with Bodie. Give me 2 vultures, 2 generics, and we'll just call it a day.
I'm a fight back one last time and say that he still has AI. He's still a brace scatter ace. And when part of a squad ball that's not supposed to die and is attacking things, he still has a place. But yeah,
yeah. To me, if
he's
if
not
you're
not great though.
if you're sending a squadron in to try and get a few attacks off against their ship, then unless it's like towards the mid game, then it's just gonna die to their squadrons. I don't know. I guess we have to make the decision: is he D tier bad or is he F tier bad? Because to me, he's completely useless. F tier squadrons like Mali Hura, Oddball, or D tier squadrons, stuff like Factoid, Lieutenant
Well,
Blount.
his big thing is he's only 16 points for scatter. And that's the cheapest anti-squadron scatter ace they have.
I mean, but do you care? Because on the other hand, you're losing the ability to you're losing the ability to bring it back with reserve hanger decks. It's 3 hull instead of 6 that you get with 2 vultures.
That's true. I'm not saying he's great. I just said he's average.
If you're arguing for D tier bad, then
Yeah. I just think D tier should be reserved for things that just don't get taken.
I don't see him taken.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess a little bit different meta, but yeah, I have seen him used
Okay.
to some effect. He's really good against small ships.
All right, so up next we have Kit Fisto.
Hold on, real fast. Where should we put him?
D tier.
Okay,
Okay,
gotcha.
I got it.
That's what I ranked him, and I'm always right. So Kit Fisto is a Delta 7 Aether Sprite. 4 speed, 4 hull, blue, black, anti-squad, blue, anti-ship, adept 2, counter 2, and intel. He's got the double brace, and his ability is when you spend a defense token, you may discard it. If you do, reduce the total damage by 3 instead of resolving that token's effect. 26 points. D tier. I have him in D tier because he's 26 points. His ability's kind of cool, but if someone rolls up on you and hits you for, let's say, 4 damage, you're going to brace it down to 2, or you might just go ahead and chuck a brace and reduce it to 1, but probably use a brace, reduce it to 2. Now they accuracy your other brace, and you've got 1 brace left after you pitch that one. I mean, it's kind of like a quasi scatter, but it's 26 points. So I don't. The intel's kind of cool, but again, I don't know. I don't think he really fits in anything. I've got him a solid D tier.
Bodie, what do you think about that?
So I've flown Kit once. he really doesn't feel too bad once he's actually on the table. The intel didn't really come up for me much because the fleet that I flew him in a 2-round tournament. The first person that I played against had 0 squadrons, and the second person that I played against only had a light screen, and I was just able to demolish them. Gar squadrons are really efficient, and they tend to have a lot of health, and usually Gar is winning the squadron war if you're devoting 134 into your fleet to do that. Um, and so the issue with Kit, well, okay, so like, he feels decent on the table. He kind of has a um, what's the jump master guy's name?
El Travera.
Yeah, he's got a tell-esque ability. Because the cool thing about reducing the damage by 3 is if they're hitting you for 3 damage, instead of bracing it to 2, you can reduce it to 0. I don't know. The issue with Kit comes entirely in the list builder. Um, it's like, can you fit him in? If so, do you really want to make that sacrifice? There's only a select few lists that actually want him. He feels a little bit better to me than the stuff in D tier. I think he's a C tier, in my opinion. I definitely don't think he's higher than C tier, but I could see him a little bit lower. I don't have any super strong opinions on Kit. I just wish that he was a few points less.
So this is kind of funny looking back. So before Deltakin came out, Kit Fisto was the man. He was always your other ace with Ahsoka because he gave intel to everything else around it, and then Ahsoka's got grit natively, but Kit Fisto was like the other Jedi you took because he had Adept 2, and you could utilize that with Ahsoka's ability to reroll both the two blues. He would let him roll, and he was very survivable because he is like Tel Shurura. So he's really tanky. Gave out intel to all the V19s and stuff around him. So it's weird because like he used to be good, and now he's in the shadow of Deltakin. He's not good at all. As far as like trying to fit him in points wise, I would put him in C just because like his survivability is actually pretty good, and the intel is very useful when you need to move around your escorts that are locked down by somebody's Tycho Ashura that's jumped back behind you or something. But he's kind of like Tell, where you got to like time and spend defense tokens in the right way to make sure you can get his ability off. So he's not easy to use, but he also hits harder than Tell because he's got 3 blues, a black, and Adept 2. That's something to sniff at. So I don't know. It's weird seeing him get dogged on after he was so popular for a while, but yeah, Kit Fisto, there he is. I'm gonna say C tier.
I actually really appreciate you bringing that into it because if I remember correctly, both Drew and I started after or like right at Rapid Reinforcements 1. And so I never saw the days before Delta Kent. He was always like the go-to squadron in the entire time that I've played this game.
Yeah, good history lesson, and it's valuable. Comparing him to Tell has a native scatter. He's rogue, has grit, and he's 9 points cheaper. He's 2/3 the cost of Kit, and so
Yeah, but Tell is like S tier, not
sure.
C tier though.
Sure, but I think in Armada and in everything, it is relative. So yes, Kit might have been good when he was the best choice, but given that there is Deltakin, you're going to take Deltakin, Ahsoka, Axe. You're going to spend the extra 10 points for Kit as opposed to Kickback, who's
Right.
got
Well,
one more hole.
Not anymore. No.
Right, exactly. So yeah, D tier. Just because he doesn't have any function, he doesn't bring any value, and I've played him several times. The intel is pretty fun when people forget about it and you move stuff around, but yeah, Too many points.
I think we have 2 for C and 1 for D.
Yeah, what do you think, Josh?
I have no opinion on this guy. I don't ever take him because he's too many points. Uh, I'm not too upset about him being in C tier though. He's not good, and I think that's why he's down there. But I don't have much of an opinion really. In my opinion, he's not good.
Poor kid.
Yeah, I know. Kit Fisto was like my favorite when I was a kid growing up, and then everything I've seen since episode 3 on has been like he's just getting shit on.
I think 20 points would make him like a competitive choice with Ahsoka with Anakin.
Yeah, let's cross our fingers and see what happens in the October update. All right, so we'll leave him at C tier for now. Up next, let's see, is Bodhi, and he's going to talk about Ahsoka.
Alrighty. So Ahsoka is an Delta 7 Ether Sprite Squadron. She has speed 4, 4 hull. Anti-squadron is 3 blues, 1 black. Her anti-ship is a blue. She has Adept 1, Counter 2, Grit, Brace Scatter, 23 points. And her ability reads, after you move, you may choose another friendly squadron at distance 1. That squadron performs an attack against an enemy squadron at distance 1 with an anti-squadron armament of 2 blue dice, even if it is already activated. Ahsoka is honestly one of the most like degenerate things that you can do in the game. It doesn't qualify her as like S tier for me. What I mean by degenerate, I guess, is just like the amount of attacks that you can stack up in one activation. She's like a halfway Moralo type of thing. I think the strongest use case for her is in the Quad Pelta Yularen lists, where you can have 4 copies of fighter control teams and bounce her around 4 times plus her base attack and just like shoot things a shit ton. She is force multiplied by things that have Adept 2, most notably Anakin Skywalker. But as we just learned, used to be Kit Fisto in that spot. All of her abilities, like keyword abilities, are quite impactful. Adept 1 helps fixing the blue dice, both the anti-squadron and the anti-ship. Counter 2 is nothing to scoff at, especially with the Adept. And Grit is one of the strongest keywords, especially for a gal like this who wants to dip in and out of combat so that she can proc her ability multiple times. Ahsoka feels like a really strong A tier to me. You definitely have to devote a large portion of your list into making her work, but if you do, you're going to slaughter Squadron Balls.
Yeah, I think Ahsoka is a solid A. Let's talk about what she lacks. Let's talk about why she's not S tier. Blue anti-ship. Adept only 1. No dodge. And an ability that only works with other squadrons. And Grit doesn't proc with FCTs. That's what keeps her at a S tier for me, but still, I mean, A tier is she's a very, very good squadron. And so I bring all those other things up to say I had to justify keeping her out of S tier. B tier wasn't even an option, and so is where she fell.
Love it. Yeah. A tier is perfect. A plus even. She is always a staple in almost every GAR list. You have to look for a reason not to take her usually. Because even without fighter coordination team, the Grit allows her to do her shenanigans. So, and it's not like a specific, like, there's not a bunch of keywords that require it. She can do it with any squadron, right? That can get in range. So, yeah, no, she's fantastic. A plus.
Uh, yeah, I'm okay with A. I don't fly Republic very much, but I have been on the receiving end of Ahsoka where uh, the number of attacks that can be stacked up from a Venator activating 5 squads +1 for a token. I think I don't know if I don't think Yularen gives you an extra one either. Also, but so 6 activations and then Ahsoka. If you're trying to like defend against the squad ball and that's coming at you, you have to pray that you have thought about this and have put counter on some squadrons, or you're just going to not trade anything on the way back. Um, it's it can be a little oppressive if you see this coming at you and you get hit from 6+1 attacks. Uh, it's pretty nuts. But yeah, A tier's not a bad spot for her. All right, up next we have DFS 311 Vulture class droid. He is speed 4, 3 hull, 1 black, 1 red against squadrons, 1 red against ships. Special text reads: while you are defending, if the attack is obstructed, you may force the attacker to reroll 1 die of your choice. So that goes for ships or squadrons attacking this guy. He has AI anti-squadron 1, so he can get up to 2 red and 1 black, or 2 black and 1 red, not including flight controllers. And then he has Intel, Swarm, a Brace, and a Scatter, and he has 18 points. This guy is, in my opinion, he's probably between B and A tier for the Sys. The reason mostly is because of the Intel and his ability to be survivable. His obstruction uh, ability kind of makes him have dodge essentially, but it's a dodge that works against both squadrons and ships. So it's nice. It helps him to be more survivable. He kind of helps your bombers stick around, and then your vultures can move around if they need to, and not just be tied down. So I have him. I'll put him at A tier. What do you guys think? Let's go with Tater first.
I'd probably stick him down to B tier. His claim to fame is the intel, right? The intel, he's the only one that can give intel out to the CIS. So it allows you to do some shenanigans that normally can't be done with him. The Brace Scatter, perfect, 18 points, nice and cheap. The red black kind of sucks. Anti-squad, because you want blues to lock that the accuracy that scatter down. So, but getting dodge basically through the obstruction is an okay thing. Like his whole thing is intel. So, and that's a powerful ability if you can hand it out to like 8 vultures potentially. So, I'd say I'd stick him in B tier. That's what I'm gonna say.
Drew, what do you think?
Yeah, I have him at solid B. His dice pool is so small that if he's obstructed and you're not commanding him with an AI, then he's a TIE bomber. He's shooting 1 black back. He's not shooting ships. I will say that I do like the red black, because if you have flight controllers, you can add in the blue, and then you can AI another blue to try and get those accuracies. But if you flight controllers in a blue, get the accuracy for the scatter, now you can AI in a black, or even a red if you already got a double on your red or whatever. So I do like the little bit of flexibility, but then that makes you take flight controllers as well. Solid B tier. I think he's an anti-squadron, and his ability doesn't help him too terribly much because you want to get in there and engage other squadrons.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else to add. I agree with everything that people have said so far. I think he is pretty solid B tier squadron. Really, the only reason that you would take this guy is for the intel text. I think his ability is practically useless. There are some fringe cases where it comes up, and it's probably going to feel pretty good when it does. But I don't know. It's just he's the intel guy. That's what he does.
We might talk about him again whenever Watt comes up, but Watt is like the only other besides bombing. Watt is the only other interaction that really helps out and is super good with this guy. All right, up next, Kickback. This is Taters. You want to go ahead and read that guy?
I got him. All right, kickback. He's a V19. Speed 3, hull 5. He's got red, double blue for anti-squadron. Black non-bomber. His thing is, after you perform an attack, you may move up to distance 1, even if you are engaged, which is very, very useful. He is only 16 points, which is dirt cheap, and he's double brace. And of course, escort and has swarm. Kickback is a staple in almost all Garless. Just he's escort and is hard to kill, and you combo him with axe, and he's even harder to kill. Easily A tier. Easily A tier. Obviously, the only thing keeping him out of S tier is things like rogue, better anti-squad, stuff like that. And he's a little slow. Speed 3 is not very fast. But yeah, no, he's just an all-around amazing squadron. He's won a lot of games for me with that Black Knight bomber, and the fact that he can keep Anakin alive so long, right? So that's all I gotta say.
Drew, do you have anything to say about Kickback?
I have him B tier. B is still positive. That's he's a good squad. He's a good addition to Gar. He's a solid squadron. I don't quite have him A tier, just because probably playstyle. I haven't, Barrett plays him fantastic with Anakin, Ahsoka, Axe, Kickback. Those 4 squads just demolish much larger balls. I have not had that much success with him and flying that particular squad ball. So if I'm gonna go Gar squads, I'm probably gonna go bombers, and I'm either just gonna fly 3 aces or I'm gonna throw in matchstick for the 16 points. Uh, but I don't think he's bad. I don't think he's in the A tier with Ahsoka and Axe. Spoiler alert.
So, Matchstick, or sorry, not Matchstick, Kickback. I mean, even in my games, I've been playing a lot of both of these guys recently, and I confuse them both. I guess that carries over to podcasting. So Kickback, he's never the first squadron in my Republic list to go in the fleet, and he's never the second squadron to go into the fleet, but he was always the third or fourth. He does so much as a multi-role squadron. I don't know. He's everything Garrett said. I find to be the case. The black die, even though it's non-bomber, is basically just what you want out of something that's primary focus is going to be keeping Anakin alive and then doing a little bit of poke damage on some enemy squadrons. You can actually do some really janky things with the kickback maneuver. So, for example, if he starts his activation engaged, you can attack something and then move distance 1 out of engagement, then have him use his actual movement to go and tie down some bombers that are trying to sneak around the side. You can have him attack something, kill it, and then move effectively distance 4 plus a little bit. And then just he's really solid if your opponent is trying to position their things to stay out of specific squadron engagement bubbles. So if they're just trying to focus down one squadron, then he can jump in there. I don't know, he if my opponent has a full 134, he very rarely lives to the end of the game, but that's kind of the point. I don't know. I also find Kickback to be a solid A tier. He definitely isn't as flashy as some of the other A tier squadrons, but he's just kind of generically good.
Yeah, I would. The ability to maneuver while engaged and that extra distance 1 speed, I think is what puts him up above B tiers for me. Without it, I think he's just mostly he would just be average. So the defense tokens are nice. His cheap point cost is nice, but the ability to bounce around and then tie down stuff uh, when you need it, it's almost like Tycho, except he's not as fast. So Tycho, you're not expecting him to kill stuff. Kind of the same with this guy. Uh, so he's not as good as Tycho. He's got a little bit more hole, but I think A tier is okay for him.
Yeah, and listen, play kickback around a station, all right, and just have fun. Go ham. Attack, heal, attack, heal.
Yep. Attack, heal, and then move and heal.
Yep, because if you can get obstructed, unengaged inside the station doing that, I have driven people up the wall because he's impossible to kill if you do that.
I want to do that with Phantoms.
Yeah, poor Phantoms. F tier. Sorry.
Yeah. We've I think I've mentioned them a couple times on the podcast of how I would elevate them and make them a playable squadrons, but currently it's not there. Too many points, not enough positives. All right, let's see. Drew, you want to take away the BTL B Y wing over here?
Yeah, so Anakin, I get both the Y wings. So Anakin in the Y wing. Yes, Anakin does pilot a Y wing in this game. During your activation, you may spend 1 defense token to ignore engagement until the end of the activation. I love the squadron. It's blue-red anti-ship. It's 3 blue anti-squad. He's 19 points. He's got the 3 speed, 6 hull, adept 2, bomber, heavy. So you can chunk him in there. You can roll your red blue. You can re-roll your red blue with adept. You can re-roll again with bomber command center. You can spend a brace to ignore engagement and keep doing it. I've got him C tier because if you're taking this guy, you're not taking Deltakin.
Hey, C tier for that? The punishment. Savage.
Yeah, it is. Deltakin is one of the best squads in the game. Maybe the best. It could be argued he's the best. And so I think that to have to forego that in order to take this. Now, if you're guaranteed to play against a guy or an opponent that's playing squadless, then yeah, take Anakin in the Y wing and tear him up. That's never going to be the case. So D tier because he negates taking Deltakin.
All right, Drew. I love your opinions. This guy is so much fun to play. Um, I think so. I don't know. I put him, and when Josh and I recorded originally, I think we put him all the way down in like D tier because he can't take Deltakin. But man, like everything stats wise on this card is really fun. When old Matchstick was in the game, that was one of my favorite things to fly. You just send him in there with Rogue, and then I don't know, he's just fun. He's a fun squadron. It's kind of like a fun tier, I guess. Never gonna make the competitive list, but he's pretty strong if you're bringing him. So I don't know, roughly C or D-ish tier.
Listen, this squadron's amazing. It's so sad that it's not a different unique squadron, like a different name on it now. Because it is like amazing. I'm sorry, the Adept 2 with double die bomber that you can get out of any engagement that you want is super good. He's only 19 points. Also is good at anti-squad and is 6 hull points. I know we're using the logic that he's C tier because if you take him, you can't take Deltakin. Like I get that, but if you're building a bomber list, he's so good in it, and I get it, but I don't know. It's odd. I don't find it satisfying putting such a baller squadron in C tier just because it means you can't take another one. In reality, I think this is like an A tier squadron, right? But if we're going by because you can't take Anakin, I'll be okay with it being in C tier. But it's hard to ignore just how good this is.
Yeah, part of this tier list, we're kind of putting it on right now because maybe there's some changes coming in the October release where there'll be changes to the point values or keywords in the text, and then we can do this all over again after the October update, and we can see like where was this ranked before, where is it ranked after based on these changes. But I do agree with Tater. I think uh, in a vacuum, I do think he should be like an A tier squadron. It's great against squadrons with his adept 3 blues, and then his ability to bomb and like ignore engagement's great. But outside of that vacuum, I think everyone else's opinions are right too. That you just wouldn't take this guy. I think maybe even in a bomber list where you can take some of the best generic bomber in the game, in my opinion, which is the Republic Y wings. Uh, if you run into squadrons, you just bring ruthless strategists and flight controllers, or flight controllers, and then you're kind of set. You can wipe out a squad ball and then commence the bombing. So I'm comfortable putting him in C tier as well.
And that's another thing that I had on my notes that I didn't bring up is, for his points, you can bring 2 generic Y-wings. And you've got double black bomber. You've got twice as much hull. You don't have the braces, sure. But you've got better anti-squad because with flight controllers, they've got the black and then 2 blues. And you're not going to want a ruthless strategist at 19-point ace. You can ruthless strategist generic Y-wings at 10 points. So even if you don't fly Deltakin, if you go back to what I've recently learned was the meta of who was it, Kit Fisto and Ahsoka and Axe, then you're still way too many points. R just doesn't have the 13-point scatter aces, the 16-point scatter aces that the other factions do. So I think you lose too much value in your anti-squad by not taking Deltakin, or the slightly more value you get in your bomber arsenal by taking the Y-wing. Sucks to say because it's a very fun squad. I wish Deltakin was Obi-Wan instead, and then you could fly both of them.
Yeah, moment of silence. Moment of silence.
Or that this was oddball. I've been thinking this whole time. What if they just switched names?
That's what I'm saying. Just put somebody else in that squadron.
All right, so C tier for Y-wing Anakin.
Yep, that's where we got him.
All right. Well, next up we've got Wat Tambor in the BTLB Y-wing. Or sorry, not. Oh my fucking god, the Belbeloved 22 Starfighter Squadron. Wat Tambor is speed 4, 5 hull, anti-squadrons 2 blues, 2 blacks. Anti-ship is a black. He's got brace, evade, and is 18 points. And his text is escort relay 1 screen. So Wat Tambor, he turned separatist squadrons from like a kind of meme, not very popular, like fine list into something that's competitively viable. And like every time I look at the card, it's really not impressive. He feels overcosted for what he does. All he really brings to the table that's new is escort, and the relay 1 is fine. But I don't know. He's just kind of a Belbelub, and Belbelubs don't see much play. But I guess it's just the combination of everything that, and really escort being able to control when stuff dies for Grievous or being able to protect your bombers better. Seemed like Josh has a point to bring up with Horchal, or sorry, not Horchal, with the DFS. But I don't know. I'm not like super high on Wat Tambor, but because of what he does for the faction with that escort keyword, I think he's somewhere in the middle of A and B tier for me. but I'm leaning towards A tier because Separatist squadrons, Separatist lists in general were practically squadronless in the months before Rapid Reinforcements 2, and Wat Tambor allows a 134-esque archetype to be possible. So, roughly A tier.
Yeah, he opens up an archetype in order to make it viable now. He doesn't need the DFS intel, but the DFS intel really helps him position himself. Whether you're second player or if you get caught up somewhere as first player, you can hopefully kill a squadron and then reposition into protecting the rest of your squad ball while the vultures eat the other squadrons up. So I don't think he's great. Especially with his token suite. He's got a brace evade, and then he gets up to dodge 3 depending on how many squadrons are activated with the attacker. So there's a lot of rerolls going on, and I can appreciate rerolls. Like those are really nice, but I don't think the evade is something that he really wants. I'm just honestly, I was kind of surprised when I saw the evade. I don't know. I don't know what the thinking was from AMG when they were starting to put evades on squadrons. If it was going to go on any squadrons, I think the best place it would be like the freighter type squadrons, like the YT 16, YT 1300s, the YT 2400s, stuff like that, or what is it? The one that Hera's in, the freighter. So I'm drawing a blank here.
VCX.
Yeah, VCXs.
The VCXs, yeah. So like those really big bulky squadrons, I can see those having an evade instead of uh maybe like a brace alone. But they don't necessarily need to be more survivable with their 8-hole. So the evade on this guy and also on Vader, and not I don't know if Vader does. Vader have dodge? I don't think he does.
No dodge, just the evade.
Yeah,
But it's better than the world that we were in for a few days when he was brace scatter.
True. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not a huge fan of the evade on the smaller squadrons. If there was something like in between a flotilla and a squadron, then I think it would be more appropriate. But this guy is made to suck up a lot of damage, hopefully, but he's not made to last the whole game. So you kind of want him to position, and then hopefully you kill everything with your vultures before this guy goes down. Otherwise, you're not in a good spot. So he opens up a new archetype, and for that, I think he goes to B tier. I don't know if I can put him. He's not really good. He's just opens an avenue that makes things possible. So I think B tier. What do you think, Tater?
All right, listen, guys, this is an A+ squadron. Okay. All right, let's speed 4. Okay, keep up with everything. Number 1, it's got 5 hull points because it is a double. 2 blue, 2 black anti-squad. That's an amazing magical amount of dice. He's black non-bomber. Amazing. All right. If you're flying this guy correctly with screen, all right, and I love the evade token because of this, I'm re-rolling 3 of their dice, and then if they still get a hit, I evade it to 0 a lot of the time, right? Fantastic. I love that he's brace evade because the inclination of most players is to lock down the brace, and I'll just evade it and take 1, and we'll just keep doing this loop. They got to get really incredibly lucky with their dice re-rolls to kill this guy. His relay 1 is marvelous when it's needed, especially when you need to activate like your heart cell or Gazanti, and it just needs to push one squadron into a spot to do something. I don't know. Listen, Wat Tambor is essential for CIS lists, even lists that are. I lost my train of thought. What I'm trying to say is Wat Tambor goes in every list you make, because he's incredibly hard to kill with screen. Screen is so good. It's basically scatter if flown correctly.
would you bring a generic bubble up? Because the only things that are different about the ace and the generic is 3 points more expensive.
Watch Hamburger is an escort.
Right. One line of text and defense tokens.
Yes.
But no,
Yes.
I'm saying, would you bring a generic bubble up?
If Belbelubs had escort, absolutely.
Mm,
Absolutely. I'd bring 2 of them at minimum.
that's fair.
I think they should have escort and swap the relay on a new squadron. I would love to see the October update have Magna Guards as a squadron.
I want to hear Drew's opinion real fast, and then I have one more point about what.
Yeah, I mean, I have him A tier also, and Garrett said everything that I wanted to say. So I think we're on the same page. You've got the escort with the screen, and then you've got the evade on top of that. So re-roll all 3 of those dice, and then re-roll another one that I don't like. I said it earlier. I think evade on squadrons is more of a anti-flak thing than anything else because you can kind of survive. It's not as potent as a scatter, but you can still get in there and get them to reroll and hopefully mitigate damage. I do. The downsides to Watt are obviously you can't take one of the best CIS officers in the game, who got a little worse after they, increased his points. The other, I don't know why they didn't give him one. Give him something. But yeah, he's an amazing squadron. You stick him in with 3 vultures, and you're gonna have a hard time killing them, or even, stick him in with your other aces, and they're gonna do work on your squad ball before you can kill him, and then start taking out the heavy damage.
One last thing before we move on that I wanted to mention, and I'll probably bring up again later, but Watt opens an avenue for like the 1-2 punch in Separatists with squadrons. He synergizes extremely well with Flak Arfrock prototypes. This isn't a combination that you see a lot in competitive lists, but it's the closest thing that CIS has to a Merrick Jendon, Anakin Axe type of combo. You can protect Flak Arfrock and then let him just ping damage to anything that activates in this little dumb bubble that you make. It's super fun to play, but I don't know how competitive it is.
All right, I think sounds like we put this guy in A tier. Up next, we have General Grievous and the Belbulub. Also, it sounds like you're walking, Drew, so I'll just go ahead and read the card for you, and you can comment up first for us. Let's see here.
I think it's your turn to read anyway, so.
Oh, perfect. Excellent. He's a General Grievous and a Belbulub. Speed 4, 5-hole, 2 blue, 2 black against squadrons, 1 black against ships. Special text reads, while attacking a ship or squadron with no ready defense tokens, each of your crit icons adds 1 damage to the damage total. He has Relay 2, Scream, up to 3, 2 braces, and it's 22 points. This guy is expensive at 22 points. His special ability is similar to Vader's, but you have to have the enemy has to have non-ready defense tokens. Like it's too conditional. He's decent at anti-squadron, but would you'd rather have 3 vultures than this guy, honestly. So I think he belongs maybe either C or D tier. What do you think, Drew?
So probably unpopular opinion, and that's okay. I have him A tier.
Hell yeah.
So the thing that's different about his Vader, I believe, is Geek Squadron, right? So Watt or not Watt. Go ahead.
I believe that he is. I believe it's unique squadrons. I think you're right.
So his TIE Defender is unique.
Yeah.
His TIE Advanced is any squadron.
And ship. So you could be attacking a ship, I think, right?
But nobody takes the TIE Advance. So, but yeah, no. All right. So, how many squadrons in the game can one shot an Arc 170? Grievous can. Grievous can deal 7 damage to a non-unique squadron and wipe it off the board. Now, is that enough to make him A tier? Probably not, because that's a very niche scenario. But still, he's got the screen. He's got relay, so you can even activate the screens around him. And the thing that I don't mind about him being 22 points is Sis kind of suffer from their squad activations. You can fit a ton of vultures, but it's hard to command all those vultures. It's hard to have their ships also get all those squad commands. So I don't mind giving up 2 extra squads to have Grievous, who again double brace the evades or the dodge is just huge survivability, and the special ability just helps him eat generics.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was applicable to generics, but after reading the text, it kind of makes sense because they don't have defense tokens.
That's right. And ships.
Oh, you're right. I guess it is. It's like the alternative to TIE Advanced Vader.
Yes. I'm gonna go Grievous. I love him. I agree through A tier. Grievous is awesome because you don't have to pick between him and Commander Grievous, because Commander Grievous wouldn't want somebody like Grievous. Grievous in the Belbelub is all about murder, right? He's gonna take a ton of vultures with him. He's gonna slam some poor ace with those vultures, make them spend their defense tokens, and then he's gonna come in swinging on that last round and just hit him with like 6 damage. Good luck bracing against that. You know what I mean? The Relay 2 is incredibly useful, especially when you're trying to activate things from the CIS ships that can't take boosted comms. He fits well in Trenchless, and the screen ability, again, is beyond useful. Especially since you can take so much trash vultures with Grievous, and they complement him perfectly. And you can take so many vultures, you can lose a bunch, and Grievous still keeps kicking. So I love him.
You guys are getting me hyped to play CIS. Bodie, what do you got?
Oh man, I really don't have much bad to say. I kind of feel like I'm somewhere in the middle. If Josh is our anti-Grievous, and then we have 2 decent points for pro-Grievous. I don't know. I guess I'm somewhere in the middle. I have tried so hard to fit him into lists. I have like 9 CIS lists that are all just different variations, like trying different squad balls and different commanders and things. And it's all just like the same fleet, with just a few different slight changes. The biggest problem that I have with Grievous, Josh mentioned you can fit 3 vulture droids ish for his cost. I don't know. And they have more anti-squadron firepower. Granted, they don't do as good against ships. So I don't know. I feel like he is limited in a few ways that's more than just his cost. He doesn't end up being brought. I still don't think I've put him on the table as much as I've tried to. I don't know. I don't think I could go higher than B tier, but I'm leaning towards C-ish as well.
I think I don't really have much of an opinion on this one because I haven't flown this guy, so I can't let my opinion be too heavy on the scales.
Do we as a group think that he's at or around the power level of Ahsoka, Wedge, Ketsu, Wat Tambor, or is he more in the range of Biggs, both the Hera's, Matchstick?
I'll relegate him to B, and I guess still force my hand. I got to build a list with him and go win something, I guess.
All right, that sounds good to me.
I'll give him a shot too. I'll finally try and bring him out and maybe we can revisit him.
The only downside is he's 22 points. That's the only
Yeah.
thing against him. But he's worth it with the screen.
Yeah, it's hard to. I mean, CIS fleets are just so tight on points, especially if it's trench. And I love trench, but
Maybe we'll see a points update for him.
I'd love that.
Tater, you've got the next read. You want to take away the other Anakin?
Yeah, I'll take away the star power here. Anakin Skywalker and his Delta 7, speed 4, hull 4, 2 blues, 2 blacks, black non-bomber, brace scatter, only 24 points. Special ability. While attacking a squadron during your activation, at the end of the resolve damage step, you may choose up to 2 enemy squadrons at distance 1 of the defender. If the defender was damaged, the chosen squadron suffer 1 damage. He has Adapt 2, Counter 2, Dodge 1. No question, best squadron in the game. S plus tier, probably a tier above S. The ability to be able to attack a squadron, and then because of the way the text is written, you can apply that extra damage to the squadron you just hit.
You are at distance 1 of yourself.
Yeah, right. At distance 1 of the defender. So you can hit, let's say you're attacking, I don't know, Shara Bay. You get 2 damage and accuracy. You block her, scatter. She braces to 1, and then she takes another damage from Anakin's ability, plus another damage to another squadron at distance 1 of Shara. Just a monster. The dodge and then the counter, he's comboed with axe, can tank an entire alpha of 5+ squadrons and not die, and potentially only take like 1 or 2 damage. He's just incredible. He is the foundation of the Republic competitively. No questions asked there. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Easily S plus tier.
Yeah, I definitely think he's an S tier. I don't think that he's overpowered. I don't think he needs to be nerfed by any means. And part of my arguments for that are his ability doesn't proc off of Ahsoka. That would be a little too strong, even though I wish it was a thing. And his ability doesn't proc if you don't get that accuracy on a scatter ace. If they scatter and take no damage, you don't get Anakin's ability. So I find myself sometimes maybe not shooting a scatter ace, maybe shooting a different ace and splashing the damage, or shooting a generic. So I know I can absolutely proc my ability, and then maybe I'll shoot the scatter ace with my Ahsoka attack to make them spin their scatter or something. But I think he's really good. He's solid S, no question about it. Absolutely, arguably one of the best squads in the game. His only downside is that he doesn't do much against ships. He's a black non-bomber, so
With Adept.
yeah, but Adept doesn't help you against PDIC since he's a non-bomber. There's no question to PDIC him, so he's going to get PDIC'd no matter what he rolls, unless it's a blank, and so it really hurts his ability there. You look at other squadrons like Vader and the TIE Defender, who is really good against squads, but then is also really good against ships. Merrick, Steele, really good against squads and really good against ships. Anakin doesn't have that anti-ship ability. He is better against squads than either of those two, but I think that keeps him in the realm of not being overpowered, not needing a nerf, not being broken. Really, really good squadron, but great where he's at.
Okay. I have flown against this guy many times. He's a really great squadron. I don't think there's much of an argument. I think he is the best in the game. I think he could just get touched a little bit. Like if we're wanting to like elevate the squadrons that are in the DNF tier, I feel like this guy, maybe we could touch him just once and just say instead of splashing 2 squadrons, he splashes 1 squadron. His ability to eliminate squadrons off the board is incredible because you can shoot somebody and then splash that squadron. So kind of like Maul or Mythal. Uh, I think if I would just knock him down to one squadron splash damage instead of two, and then I think he's pretty fairly balanced. I would say. He's an S tier. There's like no question about it.
All right. A wise man once said that Anakin was the best star pilot in the galaxy, and he was a cunning warrior, and he was a good friend. And this is the best star pilot in the galaxy. We've all said it, and I'll say it again. But I also agree with Drew. I think the only thing that I would change on Anakin's card is that, like, reclarify the distance thing. I have a feeling that it probably wasn't intentional that you can splash the defender. Um, there was a couple of things that came out around this wave that, Invisible Hand just has a weird distance thing that feels like it isn't worded as intended. Um, and while there was some playtesting for Rapid Reinforcements 1, I feel like this could have. I don't know. There's no way of knowing what was playtested and what was intended, but it just feels like that part was a little off. But anyway, Anakin's really killy. He's fairly survivable, and I don't have anything else to say about him. He's just that good.
Yeah, Anakin Skywalker is Star Wars. He should remain at the top of the pile.
I don't disagree with that. I just think he's too efficient, let's say.
But he's killable.
He is killable after you take care of axe and kickback.
Yeah, we'll get to that though.
So Drew has to head out. So Drew, if you want to say a quick word, or maybe you have a little elevation for one of these D tier, F tier squadrons, then you can give a little input, and then you can say goodbye.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate it. I'd elevate Oddball. I'd make him blue-black anti-armament. I'd make him cheaper. I'd make there's a lot of things. Or I'd just switch him to the Y-wing that Anakin pilots, and bam, there you go. Great elevation. But yeah, Josh is going to read. I posted the rest of my tiers in the chat. Josh will read them. I won't be able to defend them, but you can at me in the comments, and we can slap fight it out. However you'd like to. But thanks for listening. Thanks for having me on, guys. Y'all have a great day.
Thanks, man. Take care.
Bye, Drew.
All right, I got to take a little screenshot of this guy up at S tier, and then we can move on to the next guy.
All right, I can go ahead and start reading him.
Okay.
Next, we have Flak Arfrak prototypes in the Droid Tri-Fighter Squadron. So it's got speed 5, 3 hull, anti-squadron is a rainbow, and anti-ship is a black. It's brace scatter, 19 points, and reads, after an enemy squadron ends its activation at distance 1, that squadron suffers 1 damage. It has AI anti-squadron 1, counter 2, and swarm. So I really, really like Flak Arfrak. It's a super killy squadron, and its little splash damage effect, it gets really annoying. Especially a lot of the squadron balls that we're seeing these days tend to have there's not as many like interceptor and TIE fighter based balls. It's more in the realm of like, Rebel and Republic squadrons having 5 or 6 hull, Imperial squadrons, seeing a lot more bombers and things 5 hull. Being able to have guaranteed ping damage at the end of squadron activations is pretty solid. As I mentioned in Wat Tambor's section, if you have kind of an escort nearby, then they can't actually kill Flak. And if you're able to keep Wat alive, to therefore keep Flak alive, then you can just cause a little bubble of pain in one area of the board. He's super solid as a multi-role squadron, because I don't know, Drew didn't seem to be a huge fan of the black anti-ship without bomber, but I've always loved it. It's felt like a huge boon, especially for a scatter ace that has a decent chance of living, unless your opponent's like a dedicated 134. He is a little expensive, and before discussing DIS with you guys, I had Flak rated quite a bit higher. After discussing DIS with you guys, I changed a little bit. I would put Flak Arfrock in B tier.
Tater, where do you have this guy?
Yeah, I think I can go with B tier too. He's a solid squadron. His ability is really good, but it's only really good if you have him with Wat Tambor. And whenever I use him, I just never seem to get that fantasy level kill ratio from him. Like, he seems to get stuck in a spot where the enemy can land their squads outside distance 1, but shoot other things, right? So you have to play him really careful to where he comes in at the end of someone else's alpha, basically, so that he traps them in the room with him. He's good. I don't know. I don't feel super strong with him. Yeah, B tier is fine. The ability sounds really cool, but you'd be surprised at how often it doesn't trigger while you're playing. But other than that, he's got the staples: Black Now Bomber, Brace Scatter, Speed 5, 19 points. Like, he's never a bad pick, but there's just a couple of these other squadrons that can just be a little bit more efficient. I don't know. Yeah. As far as the CIS doesn't have a lot of choices, so there's no reason not to take him in some lists, I don't have anything profound to say.
I think I could see him at B tier. I don't think people have made him function as maybe he should enough to get him up to A tier. He's a decent anti-squadron squadron with his rainbow of dice and his AI ability, and then the ability for you to add it on flight controllers to it. So when you command this guy and when you couple him with other things, like if they try to lock him down, you can bring in intel and then try to trap more of his squad ball. Excuse me. And then you can couple that possibly with Watts on board to get escort and then do a lot of auto damage. So this guy, I think, is really effective against aces that have like four hole or less, and so he can help whittle down those aces that are hard to pin down. So you throw this guy in at speed 5, throw in another tri fighter or some bubble up at speed 4, try to trap somebody that you really need to take out like Anakin, and then uh, he'll do any auto damage on the squadron that's attacking, and then hopefully your escort can hang out long enough. He's still speed 5 with non-bomber black dice against ships, so effective and efficient at bombing, scatter, and what was he, 19 points? Is that right?
Yep, 19.
I feel like, yeah, I agree. He's like a B tier guy. I would move him up to A if I could see somebody make the synergy work to wipe out an enemy squad ball with him. But for me, when I go up against him, it always is painful to have him nearby because he's doing that auto damage. But it's never enough to where I feel like I'm getting annihilated by it, like sometimes Anakin can do to me.
He's never like the Mauler Mythal that's gonna come in and actually help you wipe out a relatively low health squadron ball, but having guaranteed damage, like he's really good against aces and like more survivable squadrons because he's going to help your like vulture droids are going to get roughly 3 damage most of the time ish, on their anti-squadron attacks, and so he's going to help you take out the stuff that's at 4 or 5 hull without having to devote too many squadron attacks.
True.
For reference, Drew had him in A tier, but I think we all put him in B.
Yeah. He's floating there. You know what I mean? He's floating
Yeah.
there. He's really good. Like, we're not saying he's bad. Like, absolutely not. Like, this squadron is still good.
He just needs some work. He needs practice too. I will say, every time I've flown him, I've been quite happy to just stick him on a rock and tie down squadrons nearby. Just let him take obstructed shots and remove the red, and it feels fine.
I think if he could get comboed with the vulture that gives intel, that could help him some, just bouncing around these obstacles maybe. But yeah. But what's next? We got DBS, right?
I do want to say he is the closest Star Wars may ever get to saying a curse word in any of their media. With
What's
the
the
Flak
curse word?
Arfok.
Oh,
What are you talking about? What? I don't know. Yeah.
I believe it's Dank Ferric. All right.
Yeah. So up next we have DBS 404, similar to Air 404. He's in a hyena droid bomber, speed 4, 4 hull, 2 blue anti-squadron, 1 red anti-ship. Key text reads, while attacking, if you are touching the defender, you may suffer 1 damage to add 1 die to your attack pool of a color that is already in your attack pool. He has AI battery 1, bomber, heavy, brace scatter, and is 17 points. This guy is... It's like, if you play Star Wars Legion, it's like tenacity, I think is the keyword. But you're when you're wounded, you can do more damage. This is try and just throw all the dice you can at a ship, basically. You don't really want to do this against a squadron because you're just throwing 3 blue dice. That's pretty mediocre. But if you use flight controllers, you can get up to 4. That's still not great without a reroll. But the thought of throwing 3 reds against a ship with Bomber Command Center and getting maybe 3 doubles is enough of a meme that I could see someone trying this. But for the points, you'd really only want to take it for the scatter, and you may not even use his ability until the end of the game when you think I need the ship to die or this guy's going to go down anyway. I may as well just give him an extra damage to try and see what I can get out of him. So I think he's probably C tier, maybe D tier, probably D tier. What do you think, Tater?
I put him in C. Just because, like, he is a useful squadron that does get play. If you're going to bring an ace bomber, this is the one you bring. I personally don't like him because he has always failed me in every game I've ever tried to use him. His 3 reds never perform in a way that makes it worth it compared to my regular hyenas. Like, one of my reds is always blank no matter what, so I was like, why did I bring the extra blank? Yeah. But yeah, C tier, just because, like, he does have a use, and I'm sure some people get a lot of probably play out of him as far as his ability goes. But yeah, I don't know. I could see D tier, but I would say C tier because he does end up in lists as a playable bomber.
Yeah, DBS he's kind of like fun tier for me, which is roughly C-ish range. That's where I would rank him. I don't know, so like he's definitely not someone that I'm bringing in a competitive list. The great thing about hyena bombers is while they do roll fairly inefficiently, having Bomber Command Center to help you out is a huge boon. But Bomber Command Center can only fix 1 die, and the red dice, I mean, it's cool. It feels really cool to be able to roll 3 dice for an anti-ship. And the scatter does help him like stay alive throughout his bombing run, but he's just a fun guy. He's never hitting the competitive table.
Yeah, I also don't like that his ability is kind of working against you. You're taking the scatter, he's only 4 hull, so you gotta hope that your squad ball has deleted the enemy squad ball and that the enemy ships don't try to flak this guy. because any kind of type of concerted effort, especially after you start to just throw away your whole points, just means that this guy's probably not going to end up uh, on your side of the ledger at the end of the game. You're going to end up giving away these points, and maybe you won't even get those points back out of his ability. So, um, for me, I don't think I could put him higher than C tier. Um, his if you don't use his ability, then maybe that's useful enough to put him in B tier, and then maybe at the end of the game you have enough whole points that you can just throw an extra one out there. Um, Drew
I will
had
say,
yeah, go
real
ahead.
fast, I do stick him in all of my like new player teaching CIS fleets because new players love to roll that third dice in. Um, but yeah, that's it.
Yeah, Drew had both of the bombers at B tier, and I think I just have a hunch. He'll probably have to go back and talk about this in the comments, but I have a hunch that's just because they have the scatter, and it makes the bombing more reliable with those guys sticking around a little bit longer. But I think it's kind of a gimmick. So it's 2 votes for C tier. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
All right. I think we'll be happy with that then. Who wants to take the next guy? Plo Koon.
I can read Plo Koon. All right. So our boy here, Delta 7. Standard Delta 7, Speed 4, Hull 4, 3 blue, black anti-squad, blue anti-ship. His trick, non-unique friendly squadrons without counter at distance 1, gain counter 1. He has add up 2 and counter 2, his brace scatter. He's 24 points. Ugh. D tier. D tier squadron. Um, he's just he's okay. I always get excited and I want to put him with my Arc 170s, and then I remember it's squadrons without counter, and then I get deflated, and then I go back to Delta, Kin, and Ahsoka and whatever. Yeah, he's just run of the mill standard, really expensive scatter ace, who has a bunch of competition, and he can get comboed with V19s, and that's okay. But other than that, he just doesn't see any play, and his Admiral is leagues better. So that's where I'm at it. D tier.
Yeah, I think the Aether Sprite is nice. I think the reason you kind of take him is just because he makes the vulture, not vultures, the torrents have the reroll with swarm on counter, which is like it's nice. It's kind of good. It kind of makes them a little bit more reliable in their damage output. But he's too many points. The ability isn't really necessary because a lot of times what you're trying to do with the squad ball, if you're bringing this guy, I mean, excuse me, let me take that back. A lot of times what you're doing with the squad ball is you're just trying to like push the other person off at long enough that your ships can do all the damage they need to before and win you the game. So you take axe, kickback, and maybe a couple other torrents, um, and maybe Ahsoka just to fly underneath and do extra damage. So you don't really want to invest the points in this guy. You want to invest the points more into your ships. Um, I don't see a really good niche. I talked earlier about him flying with Luminara, um, and that's just it's too many points to put on the board for stuff that's not going to win you the game. So I'm I feel pretty good about him being in D tier. I could see him in F tier, but D tier is comfortable for me.
Y'all are sleeping on Plo Koon. This guy's great. He's solid A tier. Nah, I'm not. Josh has his video on and he just started shaking his head. Yeah, no. So I also have Plo in D tier. It really feels like the best spot for him. I don't think he's quite F tier bad. He's not unplayable. The dumb little Luminara V19 turret ball. It is a thing that you can do. Like we've talked about multiple times. It's not the most competitive thing, but it's kind of fun. This is one of those cards in Armada that it really seems like they were building up to something. There's a couple of these Jedi aces, Plo and Luminara, and kinda Kit Fisto-ish, that like want to work with the V19 torrents, and I don't know. If they're missing a couple of pieces that I feel like would have come if we got more development in the game, there probably could have been a world where Plo is B tier or something like that. Um, but yeah, with what we have in the game and the state of the average Gar squad ball, I don't think he's ever higher than D tier. And Drew also had him in D tier, so
Or Plo, another cool character, relegated.
yeah. All right. Well, I will read our last squadron of the night. We have Axe in the V19 Torrent Squadron. So he's speed 3, 5 hull. Anti-squadron is a red and 2 blue. Anti-ship is a black. He's got escort, swarm, brace, evade, 17 points, and his ability reads, before another friendly squadron at distance 1 suffers damage during an attack, you may spend 1 defense token to reduce the total damage by 1. Alright. If Anakin is the best squadron in the game, it's because Axe exists. So I kind of alluded to it at the end of the Anakin section, but if you focus Anakin down, he's pretty easy to kill. Axe makes him hard to kill. You get, if you want to just like blow his whole load of tokens in one go, I mean, you can prevent 4 damage in one activation, but he's even better over the course of the game. This is one of those few squadrons that has an evade, and this is the one where having the evade doesn't really matter because you're always spending it to reduce damage on somebody else. His ability is like not even like it's kind of the beginning of it because he's got escort, so like if he ever runs out of tokens, you can like you're keeping him back or on an obstacle or something, so no one can ever get to him. He's just gonna keep Anakin or whatever bombers you need alive. And then once he runs out of tokens, if they, throw a bunch of dice into Anakin, then you can, on his last leg, throw him forward and use his escort ability. I mean, he fights squadrons fairly well. The swarm helps a lot. But once you wipe the squad ball, which Gar is really good at winning squadron conflicts, then he goes in with his black dice for anti-ship. And he's the complete package. I really don't think that there's many squadrons that are the epitome of S tier. There's some that we have an S tier that I feel like are just an S because there's no A plus, and there's some that are an S tier because there's no S plus. But Axe is just, I mean, he's just about perfect in every way. Really, really good.
Yeah, listen, Axe is like the foundation of every Gar squad ball. You take him with everything. Yeah. Bombers, anti-squad, speed bumps, no matter what, Axe is there, hanging out, doing his thing. And it's not because he's an amazing squadron. It's just his one ability, right? So, but if a squadron is taken in every list without question, it's S tier, no question. He's like Janors, except better.
He literally is just better Janors, and we talked about that a little bit when Josh and I originally recorded. And one thing that I forgot to say in my spiel, when we talked about kickback, I said that he was never the first or second squadron to go into the ball, but Axe is the first squadron to go into the ball, even above Deltakin sometimes. Axe is always there.
Because you don't take Deltakin without Axe.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think you also take Axe in a bomber ball, where you don't want to spend those points on Anakin necessarily. And if you're doing Ruthless, you can take Anakin, but there's so much more ability for you to just flak and use Ruthless to wipe out the enemy squadron ball. And it may be more efficient points-wise to put that into the bombers than into the Deltakin. One thing I do want to add about Plo before I wrap up the Axe squadron, you can use this ability with the Y-Wings as well. So the Torrents makes sense. The Y-Wings is doable, but it doesn't make as much sense because they have heavy, and so they would just shoot Plo Koon. So that's one little interaction that I wanted to add in there. Axe is even before Deltakin, I think Axe was always S tier for the Gar. They relied on him heavily He mitigates so much damage throughout the game. In a single turn, he can mitigate up to 4 damage. Throughout a game, he can mitigate. Uh, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, maybe like 10 to 12 damage, I guess.
Yeah, combo with Luminara, and it gets even wilder.
Yeah.
That's
So
ridiculous. I hadn't even thought about that.
yeah, Lumi is not great. That's just one of the only other interactions that makes her super good, I think.
No, he
So
means
Like
Admiral
Commander,
Luminar.
Admiral Luminara.
Admiral. Oh my gosh, you're so right. I just totally blanked on even including those guys. I guess we could have talked about including Officer Ahsoka whenever we were going around talking about generics. But yeah, he's S tier. He's just super good at keeping the aces that you want to do damage floating underneath you alive, and coupled with kickback, it makes it really difficult to break through the escort screen before you get down to the Deltakin usually that's eating you alive at range. It's just insane. So I think you always take this guy first, even if you don't take the Anakin, and then you build the rest of your squad ball around it. So easy S tier. That brings us to the end of the squadron tier list for the Clone Wars. So that and to the elevation section. So here in the elevation section, we like to take an aspect of Armada that we think we can be improved to make the game either more competitive or more fun in the casual setting. So during the tier list, what we like to do is we take a squadron that's either in the D or F tier, and then change it in a way that would make it more fun to play. So, Bodhi, do you want to take us away with this one?
Yeah, I'm gonna cheat a little bit. I'm gonna do DBS 404. So like if he's gonna be super swingy, like fun tier squadron, I think I think he should have like his ability should add in 2 red dice. Um,
Ooh, all right.
because like I mean it's already like you're already not really getting much benefit out of Bomber Command Center. And there's no squadron in the game that can do 4 anti-ship. The only other thing that can do 3 anti-ship is the decimators. And so we're gonna strap a shit ton of bombs to DBS 404, and he's gonna go in. Some of them are gonna explode on its back, but he's gonna drop 4 red dice into whatever, and it's gonna be hilarious. So that's my elevation.
That would be funny if he took instead of him suffering 1 damage, he will suffer damage for like every crit showing or something.
Or yeah,
I could see that being I don't know. That might be a little. I don't think it would be OP if he suffers enough damage to hurt himself enough, because at 17 points, you're kind of trading for that. So I
I
could
mean,
see that
there is
being.
the random swing chance where you roll 8 damage, like all 4 are doubles, and you've just hit as hard as an ISD.
That'd be
Uh,
amazing.
but I think that's kind of fine because it's not going to happen all the time, and there's no real way to fix the dice other than Bomber Command Center. So um, I don't know. I think it would be just a goofy thing. I still don't think he would see many competitive tables, but
Watch him get 2 accuracies and 2 doubles and just nuke a flotilla.
that would be awesome.
It's a dream, baby.
Yeah.
If I had to choose one to elevate, I want to take my boy Kit Fisto and give him Brace Scatter. And there he is. You can leave him as is, 26 points.
All right. Well, I was hoping you guys would take a little bit longer so I could have a little bit more thought into what I would do.
That's
Take
what
the easy one.
editing's for.
Oddball. You gotta fix oddball.
Yeah. Drew did say something about oddball, so I kind of wanted to stay away from that one. But let's see. I would just change Illumi. Like, instead of her being at distance 1, I think it should be the opposite. I think it should be friendly squadrons at distance 1 should be treated as obstructed. That wording is a little funky, honestly. So
She would honestly be super good if
yeah.
she, because I mean she's kind of like a elite version of Axe at that point. Like you just stick her on the obstacle nearby
Yep.
and
Mhm.
obstruct the shots, which honestly, like it feels better and worse than Axe because like it's not like you're guaranteeing to reduce damage. You're just removing a die, but it will stop. Like now, TIE bombers wouldn't be able to attack them.
Mm-hmm.
And like I mean, it's already a thing that you can kind of do. Like you already have the option to just stick your dudes on asteroids and the station anyway. So I don't think it would be broken. Um, it might be a little bit degenerate, like when paired with Axe, which, as we've discussed, is something you're probably doing anyway. But I mean, she is 23 points, and if she had a wording similar to that, I don't think she'd be super problematic.
And people
I
would
think I would
complain even
also.
more about Deltakin.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'd also take away her scatter and give her like a brace, or
Brace.
like AMG, give her an evade for some reason.
Hey, FFG did evades too. Axe and
Oddball is
Oddball.
FFG. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Axe and Oddball both had. Yeah.
Anyway, I don't super like that choice. If I had to do, actually, what I would do for another one is I would introduce the Magna Guards and then give them escort in like a bubble up, and then you have like a semi-generic. I don't think they should be unique, but maybe you could throw in some uniques in there. Okay, all right. Well, usually at the end of an episode, do you have something to say?
Oh, I was gonna ask if I could do a couple of shout outs real quick, but
Sure. Yeah, that's what I was getting to. Usually at the end of an episode, we do some shout outs for people in the community to expand their outreach and help you find something to listen to also, because I know when I was getting into Armada, I was listening to all I could get my hands on. So why don't you take away, and then after that, we'll pass it over to Admiral Tater so we can hook people up and let them know how to get a hold of his product.
All right, so this will probably be my last time to shout out Osmo, which is the Northwest Arkansas area large tournament of the year. It's going to be 2 days, October 26th and 27th. And I think everybody who's currently on this podcast will be there. So if you really idolize any of us three, then you can come meet us. I'm sure Garrett would be happy to sign your something. But
Yeah, I'll skip it.
yeah, there we go. And then I just wanted to thank Garrett for coming on for the last two podcasts. I literally messaged him like yesterday or something like that, and I was just like, "Hey, good job at Uprising tournament. You want to hop on and talk about some squadrons?" So, thanks for being flexible and coming on to talk with us.
Yeah, thanks guys. It's been a pleasure. Yeah, I'll be at Osmo. Pretty excited about that. If you are close-ish and haven't decided to come yet, you should come. I promised Ben I'd make some pretty insane participation gifts. Like full sets of command tokens and full sets of shield dials, like you get to choose. I'm working through those right now actually. And when I say like full sets, like enough for like an actual fleet to all match. Another thing I want to shout out, another tournament is the Western Canada Championship coming on November 9th. They've been asking me to shout that out. It's got like 15 people signed up so far. I'm also sending some stuff to that, and they've also got some really cool stuff from locals that'll be prizes. And then other things happening. We've got the Kentucky team championship. I think we finally reached our max on teams though, but I'm excited. We should have. I'm hoping somebody there to stream it, so it'll be fun to watch. Yeah, guys. Appreciate you letting me come on here. It's been a really good time.
I thought of my elevation as we were thinking about this stuff. So, buzz droids, actually. I think we should have a CIS squadron. You can take away one of these bomber squadrons and then give them like a buzz droid thing where they are kind of like an Exegorth, but they're token size, and then they go away after a round, and you can only lay them. It's like a proximity mine. You can shoot them if you want.
I think that's what Flak Arfrock is trying to represent because the buzz droids came out of the Tri-Fighters. Like that's what the little bulbous thing in the middle is for. It like has a bunch of buzz droids inside.
That is very insightful.
I just realized it, and I was just like, hold on, we do have a Tri-Fighter Ace that splashes things nearby.
My comment still stands. I think it should be something
Yeah.
else. I think it should be a token that you can shoot.
I would totally be down for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then how can people get a hold of your product if they want some very cool range rulers or other stuff for their ships?
Oh dang, yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, so easiest way is just Google Admiral Tater, and I'll show up immediately. There's not too many Admiral Tater branded situations out there, so it's an easy way to find me. My links are in like a lot of like downsize it videos on YouTube, and then Ion Radios. But that's the easiest way. And then if you ever want to message me on Discord, I'm just Admiral Tater, and I'm always happy to talk about Armada too. So I'm not always trying to sell things. So I actually really enjoy the game and community as a whole. So and if you're ever trying to like put on a tournament locally or whatever, reach out, and I can usually put together something for super cheap that would be enough just for everyone to have like like a pack of shield dials or whatever showing up. So, because I know some people have really limited budgets, and I try and be very conscious of that when doing things. So, but yeah, that's it. Just Admiral Tater.
Very cool. Yeah, I remember when I was getting into the game and I was infatuated with getting all the ships. And then my buddy Trenton, we met you in Louisville, Kentucky. Right, I think it was right before or right after the pandemic. It may have been right after the pandemic. We drove like 12 or so hours from Missouri and then played in a tournament in Louisville.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was the first tournament after everything opened back up. And I think you had you had made his stuff and you had it on hand and you just handed it off instead of having to ship it. So he was able to play with it that day. So uh super cool stuff. I always was seeing all the shield dials and stuff, and the range rulers are actually official. Like you can use them in official tournaments and stuff. So very cool. You can get my favorite is the purple pearl. So if you guys are looking at his stuff online, you can do all kinds of colors, and I definitely recommend getting the pearl. I don't know how you feel about that. If it makes it like harder to make.
No, the pearls are awesome. The only downside is like they're a lot more expensive than regular rulers. So if you're like budget conscious, I wouldn't recommend them. But I will say I do the Ion Radio rulers all in pearl for $40. So it's a pretty good deal because they look cool and it supports their channel, and also you get a really sick looking pair of rulers.
Very cool. All right. Well, thank you for coming on. We appreciate you spending some time with us and giving your input on these tier lists and then telling us about the tournament in the last episode. Thank you all for listening in. If you are on YouTube, give us a like and remember to subscribe. Comment down below, and you guys can have a nice discussion about where you think some of these squadrons should have ended up. Also, there should be a link for you to follow so that you can make a tier list of your own and publish it. And maybe it'll be completely different from ours. But thanks for your time. Hope you guys have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.